To the top three finishers of the FIA F1 Sprint. In third place, George Russell. In second place, Kimi Antonelli. And winning the sprint in São Paulo for the second year in a row, our winner, Lando Norris. Lando, perfect start to the weekend for you, and you've extended your lead in the World Championship. Talk us through it. How hard was it to navigate those tricky conditions?
Certainly a lot trickier than I would have liked. I mean, for both reasons. One, because the conditions were tough. Yeah, like the first lap going up the hill, knowing how much to lift. A couple little moments, and then obviously turn one braking always being pretty difficult. And just not wanting to ever kind of take too much of a risk. But of the second point, just not being quite quick enough. You know, in the second part of the race on the softs. Kimi was quick, you know, it was always like 1.2 down to 1. I made a bit of a mistake in 4 on one of the laps. So, yeah, just didn't plan for it being quite as difficult as it was today. But we held on. So, yeah, just difficult for many reasons. But that's the part of it.
Lando, you held on. Yes, you did. Just talk us through the decision to swap to the soft.
Will said, "You want the soft?" And I said, "Yeah." That's the decision.
But were you concerned at all about the longevity of the tyre?
Difficult because obviously we're already 8 laps in by that point, so a third of the race was done. The others obviously started on the soft in a slightly wetter condition, so their expectation was to get to the end of the race. Others only 4 or 5 people on the soft. They were expecting to get to the end of the race, so. We thought it would be okay, but even in the first part when Kimi was on the soft and we were on the medium, like I wasn't pulling away that much. The gap was pretty similar to what it was in the second part. So I think we just weren't quite quick enough, or as quick as what we would have liked. But yeah, many things changed. You know, a bit cooler. The wind changed 180 degrees. So just understanding if the car was maybe not quite in the perfect position.
All right. Well, Lando, very well done to you. Thank you for that. Kimi, can we just talk through the decision to swap to the medium tyre, first of all?
Well, we just... well, it was a bit like Lando, you know. My Bono said, you know, if I wanted to keep the tyre or not, and I said, no, I'm going to switch to the medium. The decision to go to the soft at the start of the race was mainly because it was still quite wet. And you know... despite the surface temp going up during the lap, you know, with the wet part, they will cool down. So we were expecting for the soft to hold on until the end. And, you know, we were also trying to have a little advantage in the first few laps. But then obviously with the red flag, we decided to go on the medium because yesterday, to be honest, the medium felt really good. So we decided to go on the medium also because the track was basically fully dry. And also, you know, to be able to give it a big push.
How much did you fancy your chances of getting past Lando in those closing laps?
Well, I tried. Obviously, when he did the mistake in 4, I was very close. But it's always a bit hard to follow, and especially with the wind changing, traction out of T10 and going down to T11 was very, very tricky. And I couldn't really stay as close as I wanted there. But still, was a fun race, and now we'll focus on the qualifying.
Well, the car looks very good here. Just, are you looking at a pole position car? Do you think you can win this race tomorrow?
I mean, that's a bold statement. I mean, I think it's, of course, I want to win. That's the goal. You know, the field is just very tight, and we saw yesterday in qualifying that we had a real shot to pole. So I think anything is possible, and if we can improve the car even further, I think, you know, in quali we can have a good chance to be in top 3, and then we can put on a fight on the race.
All right. Well done. Good luck with that. And George, just coming to you, a very solid start to the weekend for Mercedes. How pleased are you with the pace of the car, first of all?
Yeah, it was definitely a strong race. I think we obviously had a good qualifying yesterday, and we seemed to be sort of second best after the McLarens. I think the medium tyre was the better of the two today, and Kimi and I probably struggled a little bit at the beginning, but then obviously it was good towards after the red flag, so pretty pleased with that.
If the medium tyre was the better tyre, why did you start on the soft originally?
Well, originally because it was a little bit damper. Obviously, it could potentially be a race tyre tomorrow as well with the medium, and we've only got one new medium, so you're thinking ahead to tomorrow as well with like what's your backup medium tyre. But we had to swap at the red flag because we only had one soft tyre, whereas the guys who were on the medium had a new soft tyre because they didn't start on the soft. So it was quite, it was easier for us to decide to go onto the medium than it probably was for those starting on the medium.
Okay, well, George, very well done. Thank you for that. Let's open this to the floor. Name and publication. Johnny.
John over from the race. To Lando and Kimi, and maybe George, if he's got anything extra to say. On lap 6, Lando, it appears you may have kind of started a sequence of events when you ran wide across the curb at turn 3 and pulled some water on. How was that corner panning out for you during the race? Was it the first time you'd gone there, and was it a mistake to run across turn 3? And Kimi, how did you view things from there? Because I think you said on the team radio that you felt Lando had pulled the water back onto the curb and track.
Yeah, I mean, it's a curb you always use in like quali. We use it a lot. Obviously, when it's wet conditions like this, you kind of want to stay off all the curbs. So I ran a little bit wide, and I saw the water come onto the track. But yeah, that was it.
Felt a little bit like Mario Kart when you throw the banana out behind. Smartest guy on the grid, this guy.
Yeah, I think I saw Lando going wide, and water came up, and actually had a lot of water going into my visor. But I was just trying to stay away of curves during the whole race because it was very, very tricky, especially at the beginning. So especially when I saw him, lifting water, I tried to take a bit more care just to avoid any, spin or moments because obviously, especially in the beginning, sector 1, end of last sector and sector 1 was the wettest, and it was really crucial to make it tidy in order to make it through as well.
All right, thanks. Any more? Yeah, Jake.
Jake Bossel, Legal to Spill. A question for all three, if possible, please. Obviously, it rained overnight, dried a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about the grip you experienced on the formation lap and Lando as well? On that formation lap, you seemed to go quite quickly. You were in a bit of a hurry. Could you just kind of explain that approach as well? Thank you.
Did a bit of both. I went quickly at parts because you want to try and get the temperature in. You also don't want the people behind to get the temperature in. So, I tried going pretty slow, like at the end of the lap, but Kimi went even slower, and he still gave himself some opportunities. But in a race like this, it's just all about trying to get as much tire temp in as you can, especially because I knew they were on the softs. My only opportunity to probably stay ahead was to try and do the best job I could to get tire temperature in. So I didn't think I went that quickly. I just just went the speed I thought was correct.
Yeah, I don't think it went that quick, to be fair. I even had to pull the clutch at some point because it was stopped, and I wanted for him to go away. So it's it's a short track, and especially with the condition of today, that it was still damp, especially in the beginning. You try to get as much temperature as possible. When you stop on the grid, you're more or less in the right window for the start. So it's always tricky because obviously the guy in P1 in most of the cases in this condition has a bit of a disadvantage because the other can just take a gap and push a bit more. So it's not easy, but you always try to get as much temperature as possible.
All right, any more, please? Yes.
Hi, Maria, Car Magazine Brazil. Question to Kimi. Not bad at all for a first time racing here. Which parts of the track did you struggle, and which parts do you feel good already?
Well, today in the sprint I was struggling a bit end of sector 2, out of 10, 11, especially when I was close to Lando, just struggling to stay close. Overall, I felt good in sector 1. In the Senna S, I was able to be strong on braking. And yeah, also first part of sector 2, I felt in a good place. So yeah, just obviously today with the wind changing, is all the corners are different. So it was all about trying to adapt the best way as possible.